Okay, in this video I'm going to look at two types of chord. First of all, the seventh with a flat ninth, and then the tritone substitution, okay, which is just a regular dominant seventh chord used in a particular way. Now, the seventh with a flat ninth and the tritone substitution are chords that are often used to solve a particular problem that often crops up in jazz. Yeah, although you can use it in blues and other kinds of music as well. But let's imagine we've got a jazz chord progression. We've just got the basics of a jazz standard, which is a show tune or a pop tune or whatever. And the last few bars go something like this. It's in F major, and we have F, F7, B flat minor, F, C7, F. Okay, so F, F7, B flat minor, F, C7, F. That's great as far as it goes, and you can improvise around that quite easily. But the problem is that C7 chord, okay, C dominant 7. It works absolutely brilliantly at getting us back to the F, as well it might, because it's the dominant chord in F major. Okay, if you know a little bit about chords, you'll know that the fifth note, the chord based on the fifth note of any major scale, creates a strong dominant. It really wants to go back to the tonic chord, okay, and it's especially strong if you make it dominant seventh. Okay, so C7 resolves very strongly onto F. Yeah. The problem from a jazz point of view is that the resolution there is a bit too strong and it's a bit too neat and tidy. Okay, it sounds more like marching band music or classical music or whatever. It doesn't really sound jazzy. And your flat ninth chords and your tritone substitutions go an awful long way to taking the edge off those dominant seventh chords and giving them a jazzier, cooler sound. Okay, first of all, let's look at the seventh with a flat ninth. Okay, imagine we've got the last two bars of our piece in F major, C7 to F. Okay, the flat ninth chord is created, the seventh with a flat ninth, I should say, is created by taking a simple seventh chord and adding a flattened ninth. Now, if you know your intervals, you'll know that a ninth is the ninth note of the scale up from the root of the tonic note of the chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But it's also used to talk about the second note. Okay? So in C7, the ninth is a D, whether it's there or there. Yeah? So a flat ninth looks like that. The really critical thing with a flat ninth is that you have to make sure you include the tonic note, the root note of the chord somewhere. Okay, because if you don't, it sounds like a diminished seventh chord, which is completely different. So we could drop the C in there, but that's a bit of a nasty clash. So the regular thing to do is to put the C in the bass and the flat ninth minus the C in the right hand. There are other ways of doing it, but that's one of the most common ways of doing it. So instead of going at the end of our tune, we can go, okay, more sort of authentically jazzy, yeah, or we could, you know, go to a jazzier chord at the end, yeah, like a major seventh or a major ninth or whatever. Okay, so very, very simple and straightforward. We're just taking the simple dominant chord, flattening the ninth and resolving to the tonic of the song, which is F in this case. Okay. One thing to be useful, and this is true of all kind of dominant chords, is to make sure that the top note of the chord isn't too far away from the note that you want to land on. So flat ninth doesn't sound great because we're going from the B flat at the top, okay, down to the F. It's a big leap down at the end of the tune. It doesn't feel very neat and tidy and finished. The usual way to get around that is to play this kind of inversion, okay, where the top note of that dominant chord, C7 with a flat ninth, is an E, which is only a semitone or a half step away from F. In music theory, that note, the seventh note of the scale, is what's called the leading tone, because it leads you back on to the tonic note. Okay, so far so good. Instead of using our C7 to resolve to the F, we use our C7 flat 9 for a more jazzy sound. A tritone substitution There's loads of stuff on YouTube about tritone substitution, and a lot of it makes it sound really difficult, and it's not. If that's our C7 flat 9 resolving onto the F, the tritone substitution resolving onto the F would be, which sounds even jazzy, as you can hear. But it's not that different. All we've done is gone down like that. It's one of the most common effects in jazz, yeah? Now, you create, and I mean, you can say that the 7th with a flat 9th is halfway to the tritone substitution. It's kind of halfway between the regular dominant and the tritone sub, yeah? The way to create a tritone sub, it's very, very straightforward. Again, we're in the key of F major, and the dominant of F major, the dominant 7th, is C7. What we do is take the first note of that chord, the note is named after the C, and go up a tritone, which is 3 whole tones, which takes us to F sharp, yeah? And then with that F sharp we build a new dominant 7th chord built on the F sharp 7. So that's F sharp 7, and then, and this is a critical thing, we put the C, the root note of the original dominant chord before we did the substitution, in the bass. Okay? So we've got our regular dominant chord go up a tritone, 3 whole tones, and the C in the bass. Okay, let's try both of those chords in different keys. Let's imagine that we are in the key of E flat major. Okay, now the regular dominant 7th of E flat major, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, would be B flat 7. Okay, now we flatten the 9th, there's our basic 7th chord. We flatten the 9th by taking the 2nd note of the scale and bringing it down a semitone. Yeah, which resolves there onto the E flat. Or if we wanted to use the leading tone, we would do this. So D is the leading tone of E flat major. Okay, so instead of B flat 7 to E flat, which is just too neat and clean, we have B flat 7 with a flat 9th and the B flat in the bass up to E flat. Okay, let's say we want to do the tritone substitution. So we're in E flat major. We know the dominant is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, B flat 7. Yeah. If we go up 3 whole tones from the first note, B flat, 1, 2, 3. Gives us a note of E. We build an E7 chord, B flat in the bass. Okay. The other easy way to find the tritone substitution 7th is if you've got the tonic chord of the key, just take it up 1 semitone and put the 5th note of the key in the bass. Obviously add the 7th. Slightly more complicated actually when you think about it, but okay, fairly easy to find on the keyboard. So play around with your 7ths with flattened 9ths and with your tritone substitutions. The good thing about them is, although tiny little bit of complexity in constructing them, honestly they're not that difficult, but when you land on one it's really obvious. So that's a C7 done as a tritone substitution to C in the bass with F sharp 7 in the right hand, resolving to F. Okay. Yeah. Once you find them, it's really obvious. The sound is so classically jazzy. Yeah. And there we are. Okay. So a little bit of music theory for you there. Those 2 types of chords, as I said, are great for jazz. And they are also pretty useful if you're interested in songwriting and you want to create a more kind of jazzy style. Okay, drop them and play around with them. Just remember what I said about using the leading tone where you can. Okay, that's good advice for any dominant tonic resolution. You don't have to, but it just makes it a little bit neater. Some dominant tonic resolutions, of course, don't need to use the leading tone because you might do something like that. That's another common one which I've talked about before. Okay, which is is the minor 7, 2 minor 7, the minor 7th chord based on the second note of the scale, with the 5th note of the scale in the bass, and of course you're already on the F at the top. Don't worry about too much for now, it's in one of my earlier videos. Think about the leading tone, think about having the top note of your chord close to the note that you want to land on at the end of your cycle through your chorus or your verse or your solo or whatever. Okay? Little bit of technical stuff there, I hope it was useful. If you are stuck with the very, very basic material, you're just getting your head around chords and some of that didn't make sense to you, and you know the stuff I was saying about intervals didn't make sense to you, check out my earlier videos. But you might also be interested in my book, which I cunningly placed on the windowsill out of reach, How to Really Play the Piano, the stuff your teacher never taught you, which covers all the really basic material about chords and getting started with improvisation and that kind of stuff. Okay, it uses blues as a starting point for 12-bar blues as a starting point for improvisation, but it also talks about pop piano and getting started with you know, comping and lead sheets and that kind of thing. £14.95 UK pounds for the print edition. The digital edition is £9.95 instant download UK pounds again. There we go. Any questions you happen to have, shoot me a message or post a comment on one of the videos. Always happy to answer questions. Sometimes takes a little bit of time because I get a lot of questions, but I'm more than happy to help out. Okay, there we go. I hope that was useful.